I have about 15 minutes to talk to you about an immense subject. This is, we tried to discuss with the panelists a few items around how the big trends in healthcare will change the way that we provide healthcare. Well, I guess if you were to choose perhaps one word, we may have chosen value-based healthcare. Moving from healthcare that is aiming to enable treatments to take part, is aiming to enable hospitals from providing care, to actually creating, enabling, and enhancing new solutions to target one thing and one thing only, that is to create value, create the right outcome for the right patients. It's an immense topic. As the nature of my job, as someone who spends most of his life trying to operationalize, trying to actually take the theory, the knowledge, the science, and try to adapt it into real-world environments, I'll try to summarize a few of the important aspects as quickly as I can, as fast as possible. I think if you have any questions afterwards, if we catch each other, I'd be very happy to hear your experiences, and if there's any unclarity in my talk, I'd love to hear that from you as well. So I hope you'll fix me when I'm closer to the end of my time. So, I just want to make one statement before we start, and I think this is a very, very important statement, although it's going to be a very simple statement. We are not trying to cut costs. I mean, there is no healthcare system in the world, even though we continuously talk about healthcare provision is expensive, we need to understand why it's so expensive, we need to find more efficient ways of providing healthcare. There is not a single country in the world, how much their economy may be failing, or how much they talk about cost containment, or how much they talk about introducing measures to reduce spending on healthcare. It's impossible. Let's just accept the fact that we are not going to be spending less on healthcare. According to Nobel laureate William Bomo, if any of you haven't read the book, I would strongly recommend it. It's called The Cost of Disease. We are going to be spending about 50% of our GDP on healthcare in the coming 25 years. 2050 is predicted for the US. It's not out of the ordinary, it is not unacceptable, it's what's going to happen. Why is this going to happen? Is because of what the other speaker said earlier on, because we are doubling the knowledge we have in healthcare in as low as 3 months, and the amount of we are only now understanding how different concepts of healthcare are actually coming together to be able to make up this healthcare revolution that we call value-based healthcare. We're going to have a lot of points where we're going to fail. We're going to have a lot of points where we're going to have to fix some of those failures. And we're going to have a lot of points where we're going to have to try again, and to the earlier panelists, I think it was Romina that said, we have to be brave, of course, when we're trying these things. The one important trend I'd like to underline, why is this, why as we aim to achieve higher efficiency, we are going to be increasing costs, or why do we need to achieve higher efficiency? Of course, higher efficiency, it's not in terms of cutting back the costs. Higher efficiency in terms of creating a healthcare manufacturing, healthcare production service that will enable patients to understand what solutions are available to them before those problems take place. The example here is from the industry. Of course, currently we're providing healthcare which is very much reactive. We are ill, we go to hospital, we get fixed, sometimes we don't get fixed. The industry has taught us, the manufacturing line has taught us that we could perhaps schedule. We do this, we've been applying this quite frequently in our current provision of healthcare. What we do is we invite patients to be checked and rechecked every 3 months. Why 3 months? Because it's easier to schedule 3 monthly intervals. However, some of the problems in patients happen before 3 months, just like machines fail before 3 months, or they sometimes carry on not failing for 6 months. So it's provides some level of efficiency, but not the ultimate level of efficiency. Perhaps one level of advancement would be to be able to predict when the failure is going to happen. Again, we do this at a population level. Now, of course, online diagnostics, the fact that we can analyze and modify large amounts of data will provide us that information. For cohorts, how could we actually assess that level of scheduling? The ultimate objective is, could we be able to set this scheduling? Could we be able to create this schedule for individual patients? Could we as patients be able to estimate when we're going to require that healthcare? Do we need to wait for the next doctor's appointment to be able to understand that immunology drug that we have is only the first line of treatment. We have 3 more lines available to us, but the physician said, oh, let's wait for 6 months. Let's not change your drug before the 6 months is over. Are we going to be able to understand why that 6 months is necessary? And are we going to be able to educate ourselves, first and foremost, that perhaps the 6 months is not the right period? So I think this is the very important fundament of understanding why value-based care is necessary. Number 1, costs will not go down. Number 2, we have tremendous amount of space to gain in terms of improving efficiency so that we can provide more new technologies more quickly and more effectively and more widespread fashion to the patients. That's very critical and very crucial to understand. I'm not going to go through the details of it, but what I'd like to provide to you is some of the fundamental components of that thinking. Healthcare system perspective, provider perspective, and patient perspective are the 3 main fundamental elements, stakeholders in this dilemma, in this equation. Healthcare system, of course, sets the rules that we perform or we provide healthcare services to the population. If the rules are set wrong, if the incentives are not accurately defined, then you end up with systems that are not very efficient. One very small example, if the hospitals are paid based on the services they provide, we call this in healthcare financing fee-for-service based financing, then of course the hospitals will only evaluate what they're actually providing within a certain period of time. They're not going to worry about what the outcomes that could be appearing in 2 years, 5 years, and 10 years time. That's not going to be within their remit. Providers will only be interested in reimbursement within a certain amount of time. We have budgets, we have drug budgets that are running from year to year. Now we want to talk about outcomes, we want to talk about risks that both the manufacturers and the healthcare providers face. We're going to have to understand how the providers will need to expand that scheduling that they're also performing in. Patient perspective, I love to bring patient perspective. I have a lot of contact with patients. I'm a patient myself. We have not found, we have to admit, we have not found accurate and scientifically robust ways to integrate patient thinking into our healthcare systems. If you look at some of the liberal thinkers, when I say liberal, I mean liberal economics, they're suggesting that there should not be any rules around single-payer systems. There should be patients deciding how much healthcare they need and how much healthcare they should be provided. Well, of course, we know if we rely on single-payer, if we rely on patients deciding exactly and entirely on what journey they should be going through, the cost will be absolutely uncontainable, and we're going to be in the mercy of providers, in the mercy of new technology developers on what they think the value of their technology is. So probably the solution is somewhere in the middle, but we need to assess where we're going to and how we're going to integrate the patients. But this, for the people who are here, we are not always here for the benevolent objective of how do we improve healthcare. We also want to do business. If our businesses, if our technologies do not create income, if they cannot create profits for our businesses, obviously these new technologies will not be able to be adapted. This landscape, this new ecosystem, the value-based care ecosystem that we talk about, creates that business opportunity for those who are able to understand it. Those of you who were in the room when we had the panel discussion, perhaps will remember what I said was the creation of a new technology is only going to be relevant if we can find the right business need, the right unmet need for that technology. If we only focus on the technological advancement without understanding how it's going to function within the complex ecosystem of healthcare service provision, we're not going to be able to neither be able to make profit nor be able to widely be recognized as a healthcare solution. And it's, of course, that requires that we need to understand how we're going to work with different stakeholders and how we're going to work within the landscape of coverage, of healthcare coverage and healthcare financing. This is quite crucial. My background after medical school was in the area of health economics, so I spent most of my life designing cost-effectiveness studies that provide value or that define what value that is based on outcome for patients could be or patient cohorts could be. It's very crucial for us to understand some of the fundamental elements of how we're going to collect data around outcomes and how we're going to collect data around the costs. I would like to draw your attention to 3 very simple facts when we do these analytics that we most of the time very frequently forego and do not understand. Very simple, very straightforward. We currently today have an oversupply of old technologies. Unless we are willing to replace those old technologies with the new ones, we are not going to make space quickly and sufficiently in our healthcare budgets that will provide the new technologies that would need to replace them. We, of course, in return, as a result, we have undersupply of new technologies that are going to solve these problems, because we are not brave enough to understand how we can actually convert some of the old technologies into new ones. Very important. One of the main fundamental needs for healthcare economics is that we are not being able to forego the unwarranted variation between how we provide healthcare. It's not just in Bulgaria, it's whatever country you evaluate. America is obviously one of the predominant examples of this. We provide care based on the institutions that we follow. We provide care based on the institutions, the doctors that we know. We always seek the best doctor. We rely on our friends, our relatives to give us that information. Of course, value-based healthcare will have to forego that difference as well. We need to create the processes that the distinction between the individual physician, individual care provider is actually going to be minimized. I know that I'm running out of time. There's a few things I want to say. Perhaps just very briefly, I'll put this one on, and then I'll see if I have some more time. But the value-based healthcare, if you evaluate the components, you will understand that you cannot be creating a value-based healthcare unless you have a trial and error, unless you have a starting point for that value-based healthcare to take over. We are not going to convert the whole Bulgarian healthcare system from today to tomorrow to a value-based healthcare solution. It's not going to happen. That's impossible. We don't have enough health economists. We may have all the data that we need, but we don't have enough people to interpret that data. We don't have enough people in the government that are going to evaluate the benefit of value-based healthcare to the single-payer system in Bulgaria that's been on the long running. We will need to find spaces that are targeted, that's going to bring the biggest advantage to the population. We need to have this trial and fail and fix type cycles. Of course, it all starts with new technologies. We need to understand what these most opportunistic new technologies are. Sometimes they are single drugs. Sometimes they're drugs that are coupled with technologies that measure the benefit of that drug and give information to the payers when this drug should be stopped or should be continued, or medical devices that provide information on the blood sugar levels of individual patients that determine when the diabetes care of a patient should be changed. But nevertheless, it would have to start with that one focus area. It doesn't have to be a single technology. It could be a combination of technologies, but there would have to be something that's going to change the way that we provide care. Going back to the data, we cannot be talking about just data. It's time that we understand, people in this room understand that there are types of data we're talking about. The physician talks about clinical data, clinical trial data. That's very important. Let's agree that we are never, at least in the foreseeable future, unless we create electronic human bodies that can react as humans do, within the randomness that human bodies react, which might be possible in the near future, but not at the moment. We are going to need clinical evidence. That clinical evidence is going to be coming from clinical trials. That's going to come from patient registries. That's going to come from still conventional ways of understanding clinical data. That's very crucial. But that doesn't mean that we're going to forego the benefits of additional items that are very important for healthcare provision. So we are definitely going to need non-clinical patient benefits. We need to understand how we utilize patient beds. We need to understand how physicians spend time with the patients. That's going to form the supplementary information that will allow us to measure the efficiency with which we're fixing the healthcare system. We need to understand care delivery economics so that the hospitals are more efficient. They treat more patients with the number of beds that they have. Especially when we're talking about the megatrend where the healthcare organizations are merging, that means we're going to have less number of beds than we had in the past. If you look at statistics in Bulgaria, our utilization of health hospital beds are already very high. That means we're going to have less beds available to us. That means unless we understand how we're going to improve that care delivery, it's not going to benefit at all. Finally, of course, the social benefits of the care provision will have to be assessed. Some patients will require to understand their disease, to require to see the images themselves, just like the online surgery, the 3D surgery example. Some patients will want to see their surgery back after it was performed. But not everybody will want that. Not everybody will want the social benefits of the choice. Some of the patients will want the physician, will want their GP, their nurse, to make the choice for them because they don't want to be involved. That is a social right that we have to recognize. I don't think it's fair to say patients have the choice. Whatever they will have to choose. Of course, don't forget, patients choose. The financial consequences they have to also bear in mind. That may not be the solution alone. I'm going to revert back to the final completion of that cycle. Very, very crucial. Unless we think of new ways of contracting between organizations, and let's think of three main organizations. These are the technology providers, these are the care providers, these are hospitals, clinics, private hospitals, and finally and fundamentally the single payer system, your national payer systems. Unless we find an innovative way to contract these three partners on how this cycle is going to be completed, we are not going to be able to reach a value-based healthcare system at all. I do apologize, I don't want to overlook the importance of technology, but as a partner in a company who still maintains a very healthy audit business, who still maintains a very healthy regulatory business, it's my function, it's my role to say that within the excitement of the day, within the excitement of technological development, we overlook the difficulties in setting up some of these new and innovative ways of contracting with each other. We are overlooking the new ways of auditing how these contracts are executed. Unless we understand the nature of how fail can occur, unless we test some of those systems in the most accurate manner, we're going to end up perhaps losing millions and millions of dollars to our healthcare systems. I'm not saying the downside is bigger than the upside. I think the upside is very high, a lot higher than the downside. But it will not happen without spending the time on understanding how the stakeholder contracting is actually going to work. I have a lot more things to say, but next time perhaps we'll get into the details a bit more.